Welcome to another episode of the Sports Sentiment. I am your host, Nick Urias, and we are back once again talking college football. Week 1 is gone, and week 2 is rapidly approaching. We finally got some games under our belt. A full slate of Saturday football came and went. It was awesome to have, at least in my setup, a nice little four game setup. Actually 5 games. We got the multi-view setup with another game on the side on the computer. So hey, we were trying to get as many games as possible as far as our eyes on. So we got some Mountain West games to break down from week 1. I know it's Thursday afternoon, but better late than never. Week 2 is coming. We're going to talk about the week 2 games. A lot of cupcakes. This is kind of the FCS week as far as the Mountain West. So there's not going to be really too much of an extensive breakdown in those games, just because, quite frankly, these Mountain West teams need to win by margin this week. But just big picture wise, a bunch of disappointing performances like across the board. I was at the game for San Jose State versus Central Michigan. We did a live post-game show live from SEVQ Stadium. If you want to hear, just some more extensive thoughts on the game, fresh off the dome after broadcasting the game on the radio, feel free. That is available on the YouTube channel. But just overall, I thought the Mountain West, just put themselves behind the 8 ball a little bit. We talked to numerous people, whether it be at media days, just people, amongst San Jose State and just Mountain West media as a whole. And a lot of people thought that the Mountain West was in the forefront of being that G5 representative come college football playoff time. But the league didn't do themselves any favors this week. And there's some things could, flip. Some team can take a bad loss. A Boise State or somebody can emerge. But just overall, for the expectations coming in, for the amount of great coaches that are in this league, I just expected a little bit better. And it's only 1 week. Things could change very quickly, as we saw in a bunch of these games. But, I think we need to have a conversation about this as far as the Mountain West versus the American Conference, because I think heading into the season, I think that's where the stars were aligning for this to all happen. Like, if there was one league that was going to threaten the Mountain West, it was going to be the American, just because I feel like they have a little bit more depth this year. And you couldn't really say that about that in years past. I mean, just the emergence of Navy under Brian Newberry and how quickly he's taken the keys and gotten the ball rolling out there in the Naval Academy. Tulane with Coach Summerall and what he did at Troy and what he's bringing in New Orleans right now in year 2. I mean, you see Memphis has always been a powerful team, high flying offense with not a whole lot of defense, but still a threat to represent the league very strongly. Obviously, the South Florida performance that we saw on Thursday, which I got some thoughts there, taking on Boise State. They scored a massive win. So the point being, there's obviously bad teams in every league. But when you look at the top 4-5 teams, they really didn't take a bad loss. And, there's going to be some situations where, they're going to beat it come conference time. Those teams are going to beat each other up. The American, conference is going to be rooting, especially those teams at the top, to not take that bad loss. And I just thought the American did themselves some massive favors, to start out the college football season in scoring, a big win in the process with South Florida over Boise State, but at the same time, avoiding the bad loss. They almost had one bad loss, but still, with the UAB Blazers that I'm going to get into a little bit later. But overall, strong showing from the American Conference and Mountain West, and starting off with Boise State. A whole lot to be desired, because Boise State was that team last year with Ashton Genty and Maddox Matson and a terrific defensive line, just across the board, taking their only loss being a 3-point loss at Oregon. Just all the expectations going in and all of the national media presence that this team got last year. for them to fall flat on their face in South Florida. Sure, it was hot and humid, it looked like in a game like that, but 34-7, you absolutely no-showed the game. Boise State just didn't really look prepared in this one. Despite them controlling their environment out there in Boise and preparing for all the possible situations. Just a lackluster performance from their defense and their offense. But I was more disappointed. I mean, it's a fair assessment which unit was more disappointing, the offense or the defense. I mean, they were both bad, but I would say probably the offense a little bit more, just because with the Ashton Genty departure, I was looking a little bit more for Sire Gaines and Malik Sherrod. Given all of that, both of those guys, did pop some big runs at some point. Not like the Ashton Genty 75-yard explosive that he popped every week, but, some respectable chunks, 15, 10, first and 10. Here's a 7-yard carry. They were moving the sticks, but just some terrible turnovers at the worst possible time when you're in the red zone. Sire Gaines had a fumble lost. Malik Sherrod had a fumble loss. Maddox Madsen didn't have a great performance, 25 for 46, 225 yards. Just really couldn't crack this USF defense. And that USF defense actually, I'll give them a lot of credit. They surprised me quite a bit because that was a defense that was getting shredded in a lot of games last year. South Florida, I mean, their best form of offense was Byron Brown. I was saying that time and time again. When I was just watching this game, I was all like, it's 3rd and 12, and Byron Brown's legs are like your best form of offense right now. And they kept going to it. Boise State's, tackling as a whole wasn't really great in this one. Devon Banks, defensively for Boise State, he just had a terrible stretch. Took a 15-yard penalty. Then USF went right at him. He got trucked the next play. I'm shocked he didn't get benched in this one, just given, Boise's depth at that secondary. And especially when you take a silly penalty like that and you have as bad of a drive as you did as an individual, coaching staff's got to be better. It's like, hey, you're taking silly penalties. We're trailing in this game. You're sitting out a drive. I thought there should have been a little bit more discipline there. But the game, the play that really just flipped the game upside down in favor of South Florida was the fake punt thrown for a touchdown. Backup freshman quarterback throwing a touchdown on what was a punt. Just first and foremost, great, coaching performance by Alex Golish. I know a lot of people have been throwing his name out there as like, hey, this guy needs a whole lot more respect. Just amongst the college football space, and a win like this will definitely propel you in that direction. But just Boise State, I mean, you got 120 people on the sideline? How does nobody recognize that, hey, this guy's the 4th-string, 5th-string quarterback, and he's out here trying to kick a punt, like something squirrely's going on here. I just thought Boise State, got out-coached in this game, hands down, and South Florida just came ready to play. And it's not like this game was really hostile. Like, they played this game at Raymond James Stadium. There was not a damn soul in the building. And, I saw some posts on Twitter. This is why I can't believe everything on Twitter. It's like South Florida was like the second highest, G5 stadium filled in week 1. I find that hard to believe. But like that right there, like, this is why you don't play games in NFL stadiums. This is why you got to play stuff, this is why I've been pro, playing college games on your campus. So I don't know what the dealio there was, but still, South Florida better team. I mean, you could have played this game in the middle of nowhere in Missouri. I think South Florida would have still won this game, just given, all of that. And hey, let's give a whole lot of credit to the hipsters that love South Florida from the start of June and May, when they thought this was a terrible spot for Boise. This was a one-sided affair, and you could have turned this game off in the 3rd quarter. As far as Boise State's concerned, like, now you got to go win that game at Notre Dame, and the Mountain West has got to do this team, some work now as far as, the group of 5 college football playoff spots. So they're going to need some help along the way while also taking care of business themselves. But Boise State plays Eastern Washington week 2. Obviously they're a gigantic favorite. I think they're laying like 28 points, something like that. This just has to be a get right game for Boise. Run up the score, get a bunch of guys involved, Sire Gaines, Malik Sherrod, reignite Maddox Matson, get him some confidence throwing the ball, because he's going to need to throw the ball a whole lot more this season compared to last year when he had Genty in the backfield. And defensively, I mean, this pass defense is still problematic for Boise State, and it was a problem last year. Teams are going to continue to pick on that secondary for the Broncos, and, we'll see. I doubt that gets resolved versus Eastern Washington. It'll look good, but this is a long-term issue right now for Boise State. So we'll see if Spencer Danielson and the crew can correct that. But credit to South Florida. They had a great game plan, a great game, and that showcased on the field. Wyoming and Akron, week 1, out there in the middle of nowhere in Akron, Ohio, 10-0. Wyoming score. They win on the road. Just a classic Wyoming Cowboy football game, quite honestly. Low scoring, defense first, Cowboy tough. Wyoming defense was terrific. Braden Johnson had himself a massive interception in this one in the end zone, like late third, early fourth quarter, I believe, when, Ben Finley and company were driving. And I have to say, I know Wyoming only scored 10 points, but this Wyoming offense is way more dynamic than it was last year. This game was a tough watch, don't get me wrong. But Caden Anderson navigating things, I thought he did so thoroughly. Just stalling at the wrong time on the edge of field goal range, right there in no man's land. Had some costly turnovers, in the red zone. If you're playing a upper echelon, Mountain West team, you probably don't win that game. But Wyoming from the eye test and, just their skill position and just having all their ducks in a row on offense aligned, they look much better than they did last year. I know it was only 10-0, but you get out of town with the victory, and that's all that matters. Sam Scott at running back looked very good, running hard behind, 2 really good linemen in Caden Barnett and Jack Walsh. So I expect Scott to continue to be a weapon in this offense. And Chris Durr Jr., we did not mention a whole lot of this guy, in our previews and out there in media days, that this guy can be a legitimate threat. But when you have 8 receptions, 190 yards, and a touchdown, you're doing a whole lot of good things, right? And the funny thing was, the only touchdown in this game was just like a bubble screen on the outside, and poor tackling by Akron ultimately to score the only touchdown in this game. So I thought that was pretty funny how Wyoming scored. But Chris Durr Jr. is a real threat. Jalen Sargent did a couple things in this game. I need more John Michael Gillenborg targets in this one. He needs to be catching 7-8 balls a game for this team. Durr Jr. is going to be the guy, at the wide receiver position, it looks like, for this team. But John Michael Gillenborg is too good of a tight end in this league, to not be getting his touches. I understand that it kind of turned into one of those field position battles and, chewing up the clock and making sure Akron doesn't score, and they were using him for blocking a whole bunch, and he looked good doing so. But at some point, as the season progresses, I want to see more targets and more utilization in the passing game with John Michael Gillenborg. Wyoming, week 2 home opener versus Northern Iowa. I expect the Cowboys to be 2-0, and that would be a really good start to the season for a team that had a whole lot of bad vibes and quite honestly, not the greatest season last year. So this team's off to a good start, and a game that they were favored in getting it done. They weren't doing that last year. And, credit to the Cowboys, because if you put last year's squad with Evan Svoboda at quarterback for that team, they probably don't win. I say, Wyoming is better than they were last year. Despite the scoreboard being a little ugly there. We talked about it when I talked to their players, and I tweeted this out. When I talked to their players and I talked to Jay Sawvell, there was just more positivity and, good vibes out of the squad, and they just felt more confident as a group. And I moved them up in the preseason polls, at least in my preseason polls, after talking to them. Like, okay, this is a team that I feel a whole lot better about prior to media days. So credit to the Cowboys. I think they're a threat going forward as far as, hey, upset special in Laramie, Wyoming when they're playing at home come league play time. Stony Brook and San Diego State, we're not going to spend too much time on this one. 42-0 San Diego State. We said that the Aztecs and this good Stony Brook FCS team to shut them out. That Aztec defense looked very solid. And again, that's what happens when you have 11 returners back. Guys know how to play with each other, and, that unit is going to look good. I was more so looking for the offense for San Diego State. Jaden Denegal was making some really good throws out there. Him and Jacob Bostic, I expect to be wide receiver one in this offense going forward. That chemistry looked very on point. I was very impressed with that. And San Diego State could have even scored even more points in this game. Like, if Denegal and Bostic, connect on some deep balls down the field, like in the second quarter, this could have even been more ugly. But Sean Lewis needed this. He needed to run up the score game, get some more, impress the boosters, impress some fans in the process. So San Diego State, you're playing at Washington State this week, and I actually like you in the game. This might have been a team that I could be wrong about. And again, we'll see what happens when they head into league play. A whole lot of things can happen, once when you get into, teams that are very more familiar with their game. We're not going to overreact to a week 1 42-point win over Stony Brook, but a good start. And now you play at Washington State, which, quite honestly, I think you're going to win the game, San Diego State. Washington State did not look good last week versus the Idaho Vandals, 13-10. I mean, their QB1, Zevi Eklas, is now QB3. So there's a whole bunch of commotion behind the scenes at the quarterback position for the Cougs. The game is in Pullman. I expect it to be loud, and it's going to be a good test for Jaden Denegal, but I expect that defense and the offense to do just enough to ultimately squeak out a win. UNLV and Sam Houston State. I'm going to be completely honest. I did not catch a single snap of this game live. Rewatched a little bit of some highlights. Anthony Calandria, Mountain West Player of the Week. He's your QB1 going forward, no doubt. We talked about the Jaden Bradley emergence and him just looking solid out there. He did. I mean, he had another 100+ yards receiving. UNLV looks good right now, but I'm not going to, they're taking care of business. Everyone was kind of worried about them when they won versus Idaho State. And this Sam Houston State team, we've seen them twice now, and we're going to see them a third time when they play Hawaii. This team for with Phil Longo offensively, I mean, it just doesn't look right. I know they put up 21 points, but I don't know. Now Hunter Watson is not playing great. Like, they just don't seem on the same page. And defensively, they're a mess. Like, in man coverage, we talked about their defense in week 0. Like, it's just all over the place. They're undersized in that area. Like, they're going to be giving up points galore all year long, and I don't think their offense is going to be able to maximize on it. But credit UNLV, you're 2-0. You go on the road, you get it done, and now you got this big game versus UCLA, who didn't look good versus the Utah Utes. But I don't think a lot of people are going to look good versus the Utah Utes this year with Devin Dampier and Kyle Whittingham under the helm out there in Salt Lake City. So good test for UCLA and UNLV for both of those squads, because they both need, to keep the ball rolling here. And UNLV's defense is going to get tested. They haven't those two offenses, like the Idaho State offense is better than the Sam Houston State offense. And now you're going to play this UCLA team that, that's got better recruits than you and has got Nico Iamaleava. So I'm very interested to see what happens in that game, just as a whole for that squad. Penn State and Nevada, not really too much to take away here. Penn State looked great. Nevada, had this little backdoor touchdown. That was their only touchdown of the game. I got to see Nevada week 2 versus Sacramento State to really get a grasp on what they got going on. And that's a really good, Sacramento State team, like their top 15 FCS team. They got Brendan Marion, who's got familiarity with playing Nevada and game planning for that team, and vice versa for Jeff Choate company. So we really didn't learn too much about Nevada this week. I felt like, their defense was in tons of bad positions. I'm not going to take too much away offensively from this team. And we'll have a better understanding of Nevada this week when they play Sac State. I do think Nevada is going to win the game. I wasn't really impressed with Sac State's performance. With Jaden Rashada, the numbers didn't look terrific. But like I said, these two teams do know each other, and these two coaches know each other. So we're going to see what happens. It is the home opener in Reno. I expect them to get it done. And if they don't, that's not going to look good for them at all. Bucknell at Air Force, 49-13 win for the Air Force Falcons. Very impressed with Air Force. I talked about it. I was talking about this game for weeks. Like, I know it's just the Bucknell Bison, but I want to see how Air Force operates against this team. Josh Johnson looked good. Liam Zarka looked good. All of a sudden, from a question mark at quarterback to, quite honestly, you might have more than one option here. Cade Frew, Terrence Gist. I mean, just everybody, the fullbacks, the running backs, Air Force, they let up a garbage touchdown late in the fourth quarter, but I don't really, care about something like that. This was just more so about me trying to evaluate the Air Force offense. Is Air Force going to throw the ball a little bit more this year? That was something that was like, whoa, these guys are taking shots down the field. Might have just been because of like busted coverages and Bucknell just trying to sell out to the run. But if Air Force is taking deep shots down the field and, they're making plays like that a little bit more consistently, I mean, buy some Air Force stock, people. We'll see what they're on a bye week this week. Just kind of wild, a week 2 bye. That's completely uncharacteristic, but they got a conference game week 3, I think, versus Utah State. We're going to learn a whole lot more about those teams then, but very impressed with the Air Force Falcons. UTEP and Utah State, a 28-16 victory for Bronco Mendenhall's group. Again, it's a 12-point victory for the Aggies. This is, you can just tell, a very well-coached team. Defensively, they had I thought they looked pretty solid. And, as most Coach Mendenhall teams do, I know the New Mexico team, kind of an outlier last year. But Miles Davis, I think this is going to be a guy for the Aggies this year. I mean, through the air, on the ground, just productive across the board. He tiptoed on the sideline for a touch, for a run that ended up standing for a touchdown. I completely disagreed with the call. I saw a bunch of UTEP fans online very furious with that, but it was the wrong call, and the fact that they couldn't get it even right on replay was no good either. But impressive start for the Aggies. Now they go play at Texas A&M. Good luck out there in College Station. New Mexico and Michigan, a 34-17 win for Michigan. Jason Eck kind of said at the end of the game, or he said on Tuesday in his presser, like, I have never gotten so many congratulations for a 17-point loss. But honestly, I'm kind of one of those guys. Like, I was very impressed with New Mexico. Jason Eck had his boys ready. And, I think New Mexico is going to be a pain in the neck for some Mountain West teams this year. There's a very high likelihood that they're going bowling. I mean, DJ McKinney had a passing touchdown. Their running back fooled out the entire Michigan team. Dorian Thomas, their tight end, the transfer from Arizona, 10 receptions, 71 yards, 2 touchdowns. They play Idaho State this week. And Idaho State, I just read the other day that they're out without their starting quarterback, Jordan Cook, I believe. So I significantly downgrade the Bengals in that one. I have to say, interested to see the New Mexico crowd this weekend, even though it's an FCS, because I know they've been pumping out the marketing to get folks out there in Albuquerque to attend these games. But overall, impressed with the New Mexico Lobos, despite it being a 17-point loss. Their defense was hanging around in this one. They threw like the kitchen sink at Bryce Underwood. And, they stifled him a couple times. Like, they were throwing some incompletions. And, I expect Michigan to keep it vanilla in a game like that. They got Oklahoma on deck, in Norman. But, you know, they had Justice Haynes pop a couple runs, and that was a lot of their offense. And Jack Lane, that is a tough son of a gun. He took some massive hits in that one, and we already know he was banged up during the offseason. So this is a tough team. They're going to come prepared every week, and overall, like, if you're going to boost one team for a loss in the power rankings, you got to boost up New Mexico because if that game's in Albuquerque and it's a different opponent in Mountain West play and they put up a performance like that from a physicality and toughness standpoint, they're going to beat some teams. So very impressed with what they brought to the table despite it being a loss. Georgia Southern and Fresno State. Fresno State really blew this game open in the second half. Georgia Southern led at halftime 14-13. Your final score 42-14 in favor of the Bulldogs. Fresno State, we talked about it. It's going to be a ground and pound team this year. 44 rushes, 351 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Bryson Donaldson had 167 yards and a touchdown himself. Rayshawn Luke on 10 carries had 96 yards and 3 touchdowns. This is the blueprint for Fresno. The offensive line was going to work. You want to talk about running the damn ball. That motto being thrown all over the place out there in the Central Valley. Look good. I mean, the line of scrimmage, just the mesh point between EJ Warner and all these running backs, they're all on the same page. And that defense, they needed a bounce back performance. They adjusted in the second half. Georgia Southern, I mean, I wasn't the biggest JC French guy and, Clay Helton guy. You got to think the seat's getting a little hot out there in Statesboro. It was already hot, but it's getting a little bit more hotter. Now Fresno State. Big test for this team. You're 1-1. Now you got to go to Corvallis against the Oregon State Beavers. So good test. It'll be a hostile environment. That Racer Stadium gets loud, and I think that will be a very good test for a first-year head coach to walk into, and an offensive line and a ground game to really get things right out there on the road. So excited to see that one this weekend. Hawaii and Arizona. Arizona 40-6. We talked about the brutal spot here for Hawaii. With the Micah Alejado injury in week 0. I said you should have probably just rested him because you got to pace him for a 12, 13 week season here. He got hurt again in this game. He ended up playing, but got hurt again. This injury looks even worse. I mean, just terrible for Hawaii. I don't think he's going to play for Sam Houston, and I wouldn't play him. I would, the way Sam Houston's going right now, Luke Weaver could beat him, their backup quarterback. So, if Hawaii can just get out of that game, there was not a whole lot of good things in this one for them, but pivot towards week 2 versus Sam Houston State. I expect Hawaii to still win that game, even with Luke Weaver at quarterback. And I'll tell you what, not only was it a brutal spot for just Hawaii, game planning and, just the traveling situation and everything, but Brent Brennan for the Arizona Wildcats head coach, he has game planned for Hawaii tons of times, and it made me really realize, I was like, man, I was watching the second quarter. I was like, man, Brent Brennan has played Hawaii a jillion times from his times at San Jose State. He knows this offense in and out, not to mention his connections on the island. He's got that offense figured out. Like defensively, I mean, they figured it out. And Hawaii had no answers, even when Alejado was in. So credit to Arizona. Arizona, I think, is going to be the sneaky Big 12 team that nobody's going to really want to play. This group is better than it was last year. And last year, they had Ted McMillan and a few more, star power type players. This group, they might not have the big names as they did last year, but they're a better team. And, Arizona, this is going to be a team that runs the ball a lot. I mean, just 32 carries on the ground, 185 yards, 4 touchdowns, averaging 6 yards a carry. This Hawaii rush defense, this is back-to-back weeks now where it didn't look good. That might be the blueprint on how you beat the Rainbow Warriors going forward. Colorado State and Washington. we talked about that this game was going to be a little bit high scoring. We knew Colorado State defense was going to be in a tough spot given the Damon Williams and Jonah Coleman show out there in Seattle. And Colorado State, they were in this game like midway through the third quarter. Washington gained some separation, kind of like how we thought. But Colorado State offensively, that was a good performance. Jed Fish gave tons of kudos to that team. Like, hey, that was a team that, don't be shocked if they're competing for a Mountain West championship. I'm personally not there yet on Colorado State. We still got more to see with this group, but they definitely look good. Dupree on the ground looks solid. Braden Fowler Nicolosi was throwing stuff in the end zone. So Colorado State, it's a 17-point loss for you guys, but I would say overall a respectable showing. They got Northern Colorado this week, so nice little home opener to impress the fans out there in Fort Collins. Again, a lot of these teams are playing FCS teams, so it's going to be one of those weeks this week where you're like, okay, we'll see where we're at. And then, the San Jose State at Central Michigan game. I mean, look, San Jose State lost 16-14. I got a little bit worried about this game when I heard the coach's comments say when, they're watching film all over the place. And, the Central Michigan team, like, I knew that they were going to run the ball just because they had so much, like, question marks at the wide receiver position. But, man, they were not kidding. Like, 50 rushes on the ground between everybody. Like, they were swapping out quarterbacks for their personnel groupings, 13, 14 personnel. Like, you want to talk about a physical game. That was next level. And I'm not really sure if San Jose State was really prepared for that physicality, but wow. Special teams has got to get better. The defense did adjust after allowing 96 rushing yards in the first quarter. Walker Egan in the offense most certainly has to be better. But Danny Scudero is your guy. 8 receptions, 189 yards. Very impressive showing. I expect, San Jose State with Walker Egan and Leland Smith to build a little bit better rapport and get a little bit more comfortable with one another going forward. So we'll see how that all materializes. But, not a great loss for San Jose State. Now they got to go on the road at Texas. If you want to hear our San Jose State Texas game preview, that is available on all platforms: YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, you name it, wherever you get your podcasts. Shout out to our boy Corey Mose out there in Austin, Texas, for taking some time this week to chat about that matchup. As far as that matchup's concerned, just very briefly, I think San Jose State will score some points in the first quarter. Texas is going to be able to run the ball, and it's just a matter of, between Quintavion Wisner and CJ Baxter, like, they're going to have success running the ball, especially if Central Michigan had running the ball. I don't think they'll even need to go 13, 14 personnel. Like, they can get it done with like 11 or 12, quite frankly. And let's see the secondary for San Jose State. They didn't throw the ball that much. Central Michigan did. Let's just see how things roll. So that's where I'm at. Let's see some Jalen Thomas and man coverage. Let's see the opposite side at the cornerback spot. Let's see these safeties go to work. Let's see better tackling across the board for this defense. So even though it's a, Texas, home opener for them, San Jose State, I think they're going to put up some points. They'll probably lose this game with margin. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that they're going to win the game. But it's a good challenge for this group, and I think they need it. And I would expect this team to be 0-2, but I would expect them to hit the ground running. I mean, you got Idaho and Stanford. After Idaho and Stanford, you have to be 2-2 heading into conference play. And this offense, I think both units, in fact, all 3 units, if you're 2-2 after Stanford and, the offense is looking a little bit more crisp, like how we saw it last year. The defense is improving the tackling and they're getting stops, and, they figure out, the field goal kicking situation, and whoever the kicker is, they're making field goals. You'll feel a little bit better about this team come to week 5 when they start league play versus New Mexico. But that's where we're at right now. As far as the Mountain West is concerned, a lot of, I would expect one-sided affairs. A whole lot of chalk on the board. That Fresno Oregon State game is probably the game that I will be paying attention to the most. As far as just some other stuff, big picture, Texas and Ohio State. Texas, there's no reason to hit the panic button with the winner or loser of this team. Ohio State looked good. Julian Sayin, they kept it very, I would say, vanilla for him. Nothing not a crazy game plan, something that he can handle. We talked about it on the Texas preview that the Arch Manning stuff is just kind of out of control. Like this guy, he just needs more reps. It was a tough spot in week 1 in Columbus. I would expect him to continue to get things done and, ultimately gain a little bit more confidence. We had some other big games on the board. Alabama and Florida State. I got this game completely wrong, and I think a lot of people did. Credit to Thomas Castellanos. He flapped his gums for 4 months straight about this Alabama team, and he was right. Seat's getting hot for Kalen DeBoer. There's no doubt about it. He's got to get things right. He plays UL Monroe this week, which you're not going to learn a whole lot about. But still, you got to win big games in the SEC. Honestly, DeBoer hasn't done that enough. And I know it's only year 1 and 1 game, but he's got to get things right with this team. Ty Simpson didn't look good. The defensive unit didn't look that great either. This just doesn't look like Alabama football right now. So, and I expect people in Tuscaloosa to make some noise. And, for the expectation that Alabama has, they'd have every reason to complain about stuff. One kind of off the radar game that I do want to touch on, it wasn't really off the radar. The game was on ESPN, but Cal and Oregon State, I talked about it last week. This Cal team, I think is going to be underrated in the ACC this year. And I know they got to do all this back and forth traveling, but man, did that Saga Bolatelli at quarterback look really good. I mean, just the throws that he was making, and he's a southpaw too. Like he's a left-handed quarterback. I mean, just the accuracy and the deep ball and just how he was navigating this offense for a true freshman to do that was incredible. And I know his Oregon State and the Oregon State pass defense hasn't been very great over the years, but man, like to do that in week 1 at Reser Stadium when the crowd is loud, and I've been in that stadium, it gets loud. Man, that was some very impressive stuff from the Cal Golden Bears. So just wanted to get that out there as well. Chapel Bill didn't look great on Monday night. Very impressed with the TCU defense. This is more about TCU to me. TCU was a joke defensively, and Andy Avalos got that team right defensively. Josh Hoover, I thought's always been an underrated quarterback, for the Horned Frogs and just overall in the Big 12. But man, that defense couldn't make a stop last year. If that is a strong unit in TCU for the Big 12, you could just go ahead and throw another Big 12 team in the equation for, this thing long term here. Because I liked Arizona. I liked TCU. A lot of teams haven't really been talking about him. So another impressive Big 12 team in the TCU Horned Frogs, winning 48-14 in that game. Before we sign off, got a couple week 2 games, outside the Mountain West that I'll be keeping tabs on. Baylor SMU. Baylor didn't look good. Now they got to travel on the road, to SMU. SMU didn't look great either, despite a win, but Baylor's rush defense, they got to get it right. I'd expect a high-scoring game in this one, and I would expect Baylor to bounce back with Dave Aranda's group and get a win on the road. Texas State and UTSA, kind of a way off the radar game out here in the G5 level, but these two teams don't like each other. They're in-state rivals. The I-45 or the I-85. I'm getting my interstates mixed up there. But these two teams don't like each other. This is the second year in a row that they're playing one another. Texas State hosted the game, and they won, and they ran up the score. Now UTSA is hosting, and they're in the Alamo Dome. I like the Roadrunners to bounce back in that one. UAB and Navy. Navy looked really good. This is just more so of a play against UAB, and I want to see what they look like because if a seat is hotter for any coach in all of college football right now, it's Trent Dilfer. He allowed 500 yards of offense to Alabama State, and they were trailing by 10 points midway through the third quarter. They were lucky to win that game last week. UAB, if they get dismantled by like 40-something points in this one, I mean, it might be getting late early. out there in Birmingham, Alabama. You want an upset alert? We got one. West Virginia and Ohio. Ohio, the Bobcats really looked good last week with Parker Navarro. And the Ohio, they're hosting this team against the West Virginia Mountaineers. If you want to play Rich Rod teams, you want to play them early just because, with that funky offense and, with new personnel, it might take some time. I know they smashed Duquesne, but I thought that was a misleading score last week for the Mountaineers. I like Ohio to win this game outright. And Parker Navarro looked awesome versus a Rutgers team, which I know it's Rutgers, but their strength is on the defensive side of the ball, and he torched them for like 31 points in that game in a losing effort. And, finally, Michigan, Oklahoma. This is your premier game of the week. Michigan, like I said, I think they were keeping things very soft versus New Mexico. This is going to be a very fun game. I mean, you got Bryce Underwood and John Mateer. I'm big on Oklahoma this year. I'm a big John Mateer fan. Just overall, I think both teams were kind of keeping it, you're kind of keeping things a little bit, soft as far as the play calling is concerned, not trying to reveal too much. This game's going to be off the hook crowd-wise. I can't wait to watch it. I'm going to side with Oklahoma in this game because they're at home, but this is going to be a very tight game. They'll probably win this one 20-17. Boomer Sooner gets it done. That will do it for us here on the Sports Sentiment. We'll be back next week, talking Mountain West, week 2 takeaways, some week 3 preview. Of course, you already know the deal. We're going to be getting some more guests on the show, some first timers as well. So stay tuned for that. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Appreciate the love. Helps us out a bunch. And, once again, I'm your host, Nick Urias, and be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.